on, guys? So today I wanted to talk about Radiant Black by Kyle Higgins and Marcelo Costa, and this is actually one of my favorite comics running currently. The best way that I can describe it is that in the same way that Invincible is basically Superman, but for people who generally don't like Superman, this is Power Rangers, but for people who generally don't like Power Rangers. I mean, that's not to say that if you necessarily like the Power Rangers, then you won't like this. Superman is one of my favorite comic book characters, but I also really like Invincible, and I appreciate how Robert Kirkman, Cory Walker, and Ryan Ottley take the core concept of Superman, but do their own sort of fucked up, rated R, deconstructionist version of it. So I would imagine if you're a big fan of the Power Rangers, then it would also stand to reason that you would really enjoy Radiant Black for the same reasons. So, without giving too much away, the comic opens with this guy named Nathan Burnett. He's a writer living out in LA, and he's doing the whole Uber thing on the side while he's waiting for his next publishing deal to go through, which he really needs his next publishing deal to go through because he's nearly $40,000 in debt. Dude, it's bad. Nathan's getting into arguments with his bank on the phone, and he's crying while giving Uber customers rides. From what I've been told, this is actually the most accurate display of what happens once you turn 30, and I'm properly horrified with that prospect. So now that everything's properly fallen apart, Nathan goes back to live with his parents back in Chicago. He reconnects with his old high school best friend, Marshall, and then they go out for drinks, and they catch up on life, and just as they're about to call it a night, they see this weird ball of energy. It kind of looks like a black hole with a blue event horizon, and Nathan, being drunk and feeling like he has nothing else to lose, reaches for the fucking thing, and then he Sailor Moon transforms into a superhero costume, and then Nathan and Marshall have a weird run-in with the cops, and then they talk about how cool it might be to actually become a superhero. And while they're talking, not too far away in downtown Chicago, we see someone wearing a similar costume with a similar power set to Nathan's robbing a bank. And this all happens in the first issue. And I remember after reading the first issue, my immediate thoughts were,
it's the biggest piece of dog shit that I have ever heard.
Because, okay, at the time, Invincible was getting really popular. And for all I knew, Image was just trying to cash in on the hype by making a new Invincible title. But instead of doing, it's Superman, but like, not Superman, they were doing, it's Green Lantern, but like, it's not Green Lantern. And I mean, they kind of are, but they kind of aren't. Thankfully, Kyle Higgins and Mike Costa are far less hackneyed than that. Because I actually think what they're doing with the series and the concepts they're playing with are really creative. And while not wholly original, because at this point what can be, I recognize and appreciate some of the subversive twists and turns that they're taking with familiar concepts, namely Green Lantern and, as I mentioned before, Power Rangers. And I don't want to get too deep into spoiler territory because this is a comic that I want you, anyone and everyone watching this video, whether it's 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, I don't care. I want you to read and experience this comic for yourself. So all I'm going to say is that Kyle Higgins has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and he isn't afraid of pulling the rug out from underneath you. Because on top of being extremely well-paced, with a wonderful balance of interpersonal character building moments and balls to brains action that you can only really experience within the medium of comics, which were all imaginatively crafted and brought to life by Marcelo Costa, Higgins and Costa deliver on some legitimately earned, gut-wrenching plot twists. Because while subverting the audience's expectations is a bit of a meme at this point, I think a large part of why is because it's often not done well. And plot twists that are meant to shock and awe usually just wind up being shockingly awful, and leaving you feeling like you've just wasted time investing in the story that's being told. But here, that's not the case. Higgins and Costa do a lot of legwork in building up characters and making you fall in love with them, and then presenting major obstacles for them to overcome, as well as wonderfully crafted and legitimately terrifying villains for them to face, only to turn around and say, okay, but like, actually, the villain isn't really the villain, and now I'm gonna start making you question the hero that I've had you follow for the past X number of issues. And again, it's not hackneyed or stupid. It's actually handled in a believable fashion, and it's legitimately heartbreaking at points, because then you're left not even knowing who you can root for in any given situation. And on top of the character drama, Costa and Higgins have this looming cosmic war, which threatens humanity as a species, rendering any and all human drama between the characters in this book insignificant. And you know that it's insignificant. But those feelings are still there, and the characters still have to deal with them. And what you end up with is probably one of the most rewarding comic book reading experiences in recent years. It was for me, at least. Because now it's one of my favorite books on the shelves. I legitimately believe that Radiant Black, if the momentum keeps going, could wind up being the face of Image Comics for many years to come, in the same way that Invincible was the face of Image Comics throughout the mid to late 2000s, as far as superhero stuff is concerned. I think the actual face of Image Comics was The Walking Dead, but you know what I mean. Anyways, what about you? Do you like Radiant Black? Have you read Radiant Black? Have you even heard of Radiant Black? This is one of those comics that I just don't see anybody talking about, which, I don't know. I would like to see that change. But what are your thoughts on the art? You know, and not just Marcelo Costa. I mean the other artists that appear in this comic, like Darko Lafuente, Eduardo Ferrigato, Natalia Marquez, Mikhail Merito. What do you think of their storytelling contributions? I mean, it's kind of difficult to talk about some of the art and the art changes within this comic without getting into heavy spoilers, because while I'm not personally a fan of art changing issue to issue within a series like it does here, there's an actual narrative reason for why, because it has to do a lot with experiencing another character's POV, and I think it's done very well. But sound off below in the comment section. If you have read it, what do you think of it so far? If not, are you interested in checking it out now? And I'm very interested to see how some of you who grew up on Power Rangers and Green Lantern feel about this series. Because I wasn't particularly a big fan of either growing up, but I would imagine if you were, this would be right up your alley. But I don't know. Let me know down below in the comment section. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button, share, support the channel. And if you want to see more content like this, all you gotta do is subscribe. I am the Mystical Green Beanie. Thank you for watching, and as always, until next time, adios, nachos.